morning, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to Travel Talk, so the Grey Dawes webinar series where we discuss all things business travel, and very honoured to say this is the first Australian webinar we're hosting. So my name's Ben Moylan. I'm the General Manager for Grey Dawes in Australia. I'm based in Sydney, and we have Kathryn Sari, Senior Vice President, Grey Dawes Australia, based in Melbourne.
Morning, everybody.
So to kick off the travel talks, we'll be looking at the travel trends we think are going to shape travel this year, focusing on the corporate travel. So over the next 20 minutes or so, we will look at adopting some of the evidence-based approach from our customer surveys to predict the influential trends that will help our clients better manage travel over the next 12 months. If you've got any questions, you'll see the Q&A panel on the right-hand side, down the bottom in Zoom. If we'll do our best to answer all the questions if time permits. If not, please rest assured that we will respond to any questions after the webinar. Let's kick it off. And Kathryn, hard to believe we're already the end of January 2025, but if we try to look back to last year, 24, what did you see for corporate travel?
Thanks, Ben, and good morning, everybody. I suppose the last 12 months, despite a lot of geopolitical turmoil and a lot of economic uncertainty, corporate travel expenditure, as we expected, continued to grow, and we've now actually exceeded pre-pandemic levels. So globally, we're at about $1.5 trillion of travel spend, which has actually exceeded 2019, about 6.2% above 2019. And again, we're expecting travel to grow to 1.64 trillion in 2025. It's not just expenditure that's grown, but the number of trips have also grown. So we've seen that evidence globally and in our Australian market too. So I suppose we've moved into a new phase of post-pandemic recovery. Businesses have wanted to continue to drive their travel program optimisation across expense management, sustainability, and also traveller wellbeing has started to become a priority in the last 12 months.
Yeah, great. I mean, there's some amazing numbers there. Unbelievable. So to bring it more to our market, how do you see Australian corporate travel evolving in 2025, and what are the emerging trends?
Well, I think we are once again seeing the value of the face-to-face get-together. Companies are now starting to measure the return on their investment of face-to-face interactions for external and internal meetings. That's not just an Australian phenomenon, it's actually a global phenomenon that we're really seeing is accelerating over the next 12 months. So based on some surveys that we've done, we see that 42% of travel managers expect to maintain their costs next year. However, they see their trips increasing. So what that means from a travel management point of view is that there's going to be more activity that needs to be managed at the same cost. So not spending any more, but doing more face-to-face, both internally and externally. And I guess we need to work together with our corporates to achieve this from a cost perspective, looking at how we can minimise cost while travelling a bit more next year. There are probably three key trends that we see continuing. They're not new, but they will be amped up over the next 12 months. And those trends are really driven around the sustainability concerns, traveller wellbeing, and the advances in technology, with expense management, of course, overarching all of that. So from a sustainability and a corporate social responsibility point of view, we see that companies are increasingly prioritising the measurement and the reduction of their environmental impact. So the measurement's been around for a little while, but it's getting more sophisticated from the technology tools that we offer. And we see that business travel are really starting to choose sustainable travel options to offset the carbon emissions. We also know that companies want to adopt digital tools to track and report their carbon emissions from business trips, making sure that they align with what they've promised in their sustainability goals. We can certainly help drive awareness and compliance from this point of view. And the other thing that's becoming more important is the CSR initiatives that companies are committing to in their strategic plans. So some of the things around supporting local communities and promoting diversity and inclusion. The second one is really around the technology, and that includes the digital transformation. There's no doubt that digital technology is shaping the way of travel in the future. So it could be anything from AI trip planning, which starts to include things like preemptive itineraries and the optimisation of itineraries, so that travellers and travel bookers can get on with what they do best and not focus on the logistics, spending their time looking at the logistics of their trip. The other thing is that big data is enabling businesses to personalise travel. So we'll see through online booking tools, the more data we have, the more advanced we can be, again, with allowing employees to be more efficient with their bookings. And the really big one that's just not going to go away is around the health and safety focus of travellers. More and more we see travel and work-life balance kind of mixing, and companies are really starting to take that seriously and making sure that their employees remain healthy, not just from a productivity point of view, but just from a sustainable employment and engagement point of view. So we see that, I guess, travel managers may need to start to adopt a more flexible travel policy to allow people to have some choice within their travel policy while still maintaining their costs. The other big thing from a global point of view, given there's so much uncertainty from a political point of view in the Middle East and in Russia, is that we really need to be able to monitor the travel risk for all of our corporate clients before they travel and while they're travelling. And finally, the old leisure travel is becoming more prominent from an HR point of view, not so much domestically, but more internationally, where travellers are now starting to combine a corporate trip with a bit of a holiday at the end to refresh before they get back to work. So that's really starting to become increasingly important from an HR and a travel policy point of view. So they're really the three key, I guess, trends for the next 12 months.
Yeah, so those trends are the flexibility. So as you were just saying, so incorporating a bit of leisure as well, the sustainability, and then technology as well. So to help the future of travel as well. So I mean, as that work landscape continues to change, Australian businesses need to change their travel policy, don't they, to adjust the policy to those changing landscapes. And I think we do often get quite a lot of travel managers come to us saying, "Can you review our policy to make sure it is now in line with what's changing in the work policy as well?" So that's great because you can become more creative with the travel policies, and it's an exciting time when a program goes through a bit of a change. Thinking about the key areas of spend as well. So if we look for us, it's really air travel and accommodation. How did we see that last year, and what are our predictions for this coming year?
Sure. I think from a hotel point of view in Australia, there was a very slight increase in the average rate of a room at about 0.3%. There are now more rooms available, more hotels have been built, and over probably the 12 months before last year, hotels didn't have all their rooms open. Now they're all open and there's more capacity in the market. So while there was a slight increase last year, we do expect there to be more of an increase next year as the actual number of trips amp up. So from an Australian point of view, we expect to see the average rate of a hotel room increase by about 3%. And globally, that's going to range country by country anywhere up to 5%. These are also driven by things like increased operating costs for hotels and also reduced business rate relief. There was a lot of great hotel negotiations happening in the market over the last 12 months. The hotels are starting to really clamp down on some of those negotiated rates. So we'll see those have a bit of an impact on that increase. The other really exciting thing is just assessing over the last 12 months, what are the cheapest days of the week for a business traveller? Not surprising that a Sunday is the most affordable. So sometimes it may be worth thinking about a traveller flying late on a Sunday, coming back on a Monday rather than staying the Monday night. And these things all come into play when we think about how we're going to reduce the cost while increasing the trip number. Of course, Friday is still the most expensive day of the week for a hotel in Australia. The other thing that we want to consider is making sure that we take into account the price reduction from an advanced purchase point of view. That's something that we really want to drive for our corporate clients. The further you book in advance, the cheaper the rate's going to be for a hotel. The other really important thing is the hotel is a very fragmented market. There are a myriad of options online to book accommodation. From a Great Dawes point of view, we want to make sure that we've aggregated all of that content into one place so that all of our corporate travel bookers and travellers have access to all of the content. And Expedia is a very key driver for us from a global point of view. And we have done a lot of analysis around the comparison of what we call a GDS rate versus an Expedia rate. And we do know across the board, the average rate is about 20% less with that accommodation content being available through the online booking tool.
That's purely because of their buying power as well. So having Expedia as an option, they've got obviously a bigger buying power than what we can do for a corporate standalone. Obviously, there'll be
100%.
times where it will be more advantage for a client to have their own rate if it's a project or a city where they often travel to, but definitely the buying power of Expedia is far greater.
100%. So from an air point of view, for 2024, while the domestic capacity in the Australian market has fully rebounded, we did have a glitch this year with Rex and the capacity in the market, which did give our Australian carriers the opportunity to increase rates. We do think that the domestic airfares will probably stay about the same rate over the next 12 months just because of the competition in the market. From an international point of view, seat capacity is about 2.7% below 2019 capacity, even though it grew by 4% last year. So we're still not quite back to where we were pre-COVID from an international point of view. There is absolutely intention for international carriers to have more capacity in the market, but that's been slowed politically by the Australian government. And also orders of aircraft have been slower than expected. So there have been schedules put into the market in the last 12 months that have had to be pared back because the aircraft haven't arrived in time. So I do think that we will see the 2025 international rates to Europe will probably flatten, but we don't anticipate that to the States.
Yeah, it always seems to be quite high. The interesting one's Western Sydney Airport opens as well, where there's no curfew in place, to see which airlines. Singapore Airlines have already announced they're going to fly into that airport, but who else will fly in there given the 24/7 operations that will be there?
Yeah. So Ben, do you have any other thoughts on other predictions in the Australian market for business travel in 2025?
Yeah, I think the airport experiences are another key thing because often traveling as well, that can either make or break your trip as well. And I think the two largest airports in Australia, Sydney has recently announced the upgrade to Terminal 2, which is long overdue. They've also just finished the road infrastructure into the airport as well to help with congestion. And then in Melbourne, we've seen, Terminal 3, there's works happening there, and they've announced that the international terminal, the rivals, they'll have more space, which is much needed because once you come off that long haul flight, you want the ease of custom and immigration to be as quick as possible. I mean, you've travelled to Singapore recently. I did at the end of last year as well. I mean, that is very easy now to get out of Changi Airport with those e-gates. So we do need to make sure that we're offering those same facilities here in Australia as well. So I think the airport experience is crucial. Meetings, there's obviously, as you mentioned before, more emphasis on clients wanting internal meetings as well. So as we move back into the hybrid phase as well. So meetings and events has grown by 30% in the last 12 months, and that will just continue to grow within this year. You also touched on the hotel RFP. So traditionally, we or the client would have the hotel negotiations for their year ahead in their hotel program. We've noticed that this year not as many want that program because in some cities like Melbourne, there is just so many options these days. Mm-hmm. So is it better just allowing the traveller to book within a rate cap? It gives them more choice. They can stay where they want to, and therefore providing savings as well. So we've really noticed that drop in the whole hotel RFP. There are some clients that still would like that, as I mentioned before, if there's projects or they're visiting offices and they've got the higher volume. But we do see the power of Expedia and other brands like that, the uptake of hotel bookings there. Also too with bill backs or chargebacks, as we call it in our market. So traditionally, if a traveller was to go and stay at a hotel, they may pay for their accommodation and their incidentals for that room. We are seeing clients now requesting that we cover the cost for the room charges, and that the client then just settles any incidentals there. So that's helping if someone's traveling a lot. Obviously, it's a lot on their credit card if they don't have a corporate card, if it's an individual card, and then they have to claim that expense. So clients are asking, can we cover or bill back those room charges and for the individual just to cover any incidentals. And the ETA, so the Electronic Travel Authorities, the UK recently implemented that earlier this month, the 8th of January. So Australian passport holders do need to apply for an ETA, similar to the US ESTA. Canada's got one in place, same as New Zealand. Australia's had one in place for many years for people coming into our country. So that will obviously grow as more countries come on board, but it's very important to understand that you need to do that before you depart for that country. Mm. The equality sort of diversion and inclusion, like the EDI, so it definitely is cornerstone to sort of corporate policies these days, and that's extended into travel management as well. I mean, everyone wants to feel safe and secure when you're traveling for work, but also personally as well. So it's really making sure those policies, travel policies, have that in place as well. We've recently seen Emirates being the first airline to be autism certified, which is a great feat. All frontline staff, 30,000 odd, have gone through the autism and sensory awareness course. So just making sure that the experience for those travellers are seamless and understand what it's like to travel. And how can they best help the travellers and families through the airport and flight experience there.
Mm. Yeah, it's big. It's really big.
It is, yeah. And Kathryn, for this year, I mean, we've talked about a few things which travel managers have to be across with the changes in the industry. How do you see that their role will evolve over the year?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think we know both from evidence from surveys and anecdotally, travel managers feel as though their role is really widening. It's not just a transactional travel booking, it's taking into account a broader set of criteria, all the things that we've talked about: traveller wellbeing, their safety, inclusion, thinking about the sustainability and the impact on the environment. Of course, the negotiations of airline and hotel deals is super important for a travel manager to be across. But I think travel managers are definitely multi-skilled when it comes to thinking about what does a travel program look like apart from the cost side. So that we're going to continue to support our travel managers to make sure that policies aren't just set and forget. They're living, breathing documents, if you like, and processes and workflows. So we want to make sure that we're equipping our travel managers with everything they need to take all of those criteria into account. I think we've got a Grey Dawes travel talks, thinking about travel managers moving forward, coming up in the near future. So that'll be something that we'll explore, the role of the travel manager a bit further. And again, it's an exciting part of our role to be able to provide that support to give an all well-rounded travel manager.
Yeah, you're right, because I think, as you just said, the role has changed over many years. So there's many things they're now responsible for, and they need the help and guidance of a travel management company like ourselves to help them deliver that program to the business.
Yes.
So I feel we could go on for a while discussing all of these topics, but I'm probably getting running out of time. So I'll just check see if there's any questions. If not, we can always come back to you with anything. But thank you, Kathryn, for your insightfulness, predictions, and for all your questions as well. I'm sorry if we didn't manage to answer anything, but as I said, if they have come through, we will respond to you directly. We will compile all of today's discussion points and send that out after the webinar. We do have exciting webinars or travel talks coming up as well. So if I can just run through those before I leave you. So next month in February, we have sports travel. So how to create a sustainable sports travel program that will be with Aquatics GB. In March, we have a specialist marine travel webinar with our Grey Dawes colleagues in Aberdeen and Amsterdam. And then in April, traveller wellbeing, which we actually touched on before. So tips from some friends at Virgin Atlantic on how best to look after your travellers and yourself when you're travelling as well. So from Kathryn and me, thank you so much for joining us for our first Australian webinar. We wish you safe travels in 2025, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.